Welcome to Continue Mission Radio with Captain James McCormick. By veterans, for veterans. Guest hosts tonight are author Greg Meekin and Miss Val, our military radio gal. Continue Mission starts now.
You got me headed to the left, headed to the right, headed back and forth, but baby, it's alright. You got me going to the east, going to the west, going up and down, cause baby, you know best. All day, all night, running around, I'm never gonna stop because you never settle down. Got me shooting into space, flying at the sun. I'm never coming back cause baby you're the...
Good morning, America. Good morning, world. It's Wednesday, February 4th, and this show is coming to you from the great state of Arizona. I'm Val Olson, and this is another rapid deployment of Continue Mission on the Veteran Channel. I'm here today at my kitchen table as usual with the one and only Greg Meekin. We have an exciting guest today from the Seattle area, and I'll let Greg introduce him a bit later. For more than a decade, Continue Mission has been produced by veterans for veterans. So let's light the fuse. Let's buckle up, everyone. Welcome back to Continue Mission. Greg Meekin, what is on your heart today?
Val Olson, Val Olson, Miss Val, our military radio gal. What's on my heart today? The Seattle Seahawks are on my heart today. Side note, lighthearted. Seattle Seahawks are on my mind today because they're playing a little football game on Sunday. Everyone in the world will get to know the Seattle Seahawks and a gentleman named Mike Macdonald. There's a new one for you, Val. Head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, 38 years old. He is so busy, he has assigned 3 hours per week, 1 day a week, 3 hours per week, to be alone with his wife and his toddler, Jake. His wife, Stephanie, and his toddler, Jake. 3 hours per week, everyone. When Mike Macdonald is 67 years old, I pray he's doing a broadcast and has all the time in the world to spend with his family. So that's on my heart a little bit, just talking Super Bowl. Imagine that. Seahawks are in the Super Bowl. And I proudly say that I was a 12. I was a Seahawks guy before it was cool. Oh my God, Val Olson with your secret crypt of photo archives. That is circa 1983, Greg Meekin, Seattle Seahawks, number 12. I don't know how old our guest was in 1983, but we'll check that out. Funny thing is, seriously, came to Seattle and I was a sports nut, but I totally was bought into not only a cool new team, but a culture. And people will learn about business culture, Mike Macdonald, and a lot of stuff by Sunday. I don't follow anything to do with Super Bowl on TV. I don't need it to hear anything. I'm interested in one thing, 60 minutes. 60 minutes on Sunday. That's all I care about. This year, there's one exception. At noon, I'm going to be tuning into the Puppy Bowl. Val, the Puppy Bowl. If anyone hasn't seen it on commercials, okay, do the math. It's going to go down as the greatest marketing campaign in the history of American business. It's funded by Animal Planet, the dog food companies and stuff. But get this, Val, get this. At noon on Sunday, noon Eastern, I always go Eastern, right? The bias, football bias, East Coast bias. And the Puppy Bowl goes on. I think it goes on for an hour. And get this, Val. It's an organized little game. It's the cutest thing you've ever seen in the world. But there's now online gambling available for the Puppy Bowl. I said, what? What? How do you handicap that? So that's on my mind today. And it dovetails beautifully to our show because our upcoming guest, is a hardcore Seattle Seahawks fan. And in between all the seriousness, which there's going to be, because we're on the Veteran Channel. And this is all about our military, our veterans, our active duty, our multi-war guys, our Gen Z recruits who are doing a great job. But it also includes out there our law enforcement, our first responders, our border guys, also known as ICE. It's all about them too. So, but we're going to have fun. We're going to talk football. We're going to talk puppies. We're going to talk our next guest. We're going to talk about him a lot. So, Val, his name is Tim Samuels. And there's a real long story there. Very, as you know, as people know, there are very few invited guests on this network. It tends to be really national, influential guys, Vietnam veterans of America, oil and gas workers of America, or law enforcement guys. But now and then there's a guest that comes on that totally ties in everything. And we have him today. We've got Tim Samuels. Tim Samuels and I know each other. We go back actually 27 years. He's what I would describe. Excuse me, I got a cold going here. He's what I would describe as the best of Generation X. Okay, that's someone who's reached the pinnacle of a business career. I mean, the pinnacle of a business career, and it all started in the military. In his case, the United States Marine Corps. But we met in 1999 at a car dealership. I'll let him tell that story. He was an entry-level sales guy. I was not. In 1999, I was 40 years old, in the middle of my management career. And that's where we met. And Tim and I have stayed in touch. Not unusual with me. You know the story, Val, of fatherhood, mentorship, and hockey, but mainly mentorship and friendship when there's a deep connection. And I really, if anything, just wanted to introduce Tim Samuels to the world as a man, as a guy, but also as you'll find out, as a mortgage genius for VA mortgage loans in 50 states. So there's a nice tie there too. VA loans. I go back, way back in the mortgage business and the real estate business. And in my day, as old guys say, VA mortgages were a nightmare. I mean, a nightmare. So without further ado, I'm going to go single screen back to you here, Val, and just bring in Tim, and then go single screen after that. Tim Samuels is introducing you to the world, and just tell us a little about yourself. But go ahead, Val. You make your Val intro here.
Well, we are thrilled to welcome Tim. I'm excited to hear about his journey from being a Marine into car sales and where he is today, and hear about his family. So without further ado, welcome, Tim. We're thrilled to have you here on the show today.
Well, thank you.
Issues. Greg, we are having some technical issues right now.
Interesting.
Yes.
Don't you love it? Already awesome.
So,
Let's see if I can.
Well, we fixed the technical. There we go. Okay, welcome, Tim. It's great to welcome you here.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Tim, just go ahead. Just do the old teammate thing. Tell me about yourself. Val and I are going to sit back a little bit. We're going to go single screen with you. We are having techno issues a little bit. So if we mess with screens a little bit, bear with us. But really take the old, in the first 3-4 minutes here. If you feel like talking a little Hawks, that's fine. But just, teammate, tell me about yourself.
Sure.
All of our listeners and viewers are seeing your face for the first time, learning about you. So you just do the nice, tell me about yourself and stuff, and let's get the show rolling. We'll go single screen with you. Cool.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. My name's Tim Samuels. I'm a native of Washington State. I've lived here my entire life, minus 4 years in the Marine Corps. Graduated, locally here, Central Kitsap High School in 95, enlisted in the Marine Corps. I served with, Marine Corps Security Forces Company in Yorktown, Virginia. Initially, that mission closed and we got transferred to the fleet, where I was with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines Weapons Company down in 29 Palms. That was a lot of fun, and being so many years now removed from it, all I remember is the fun times. But I think if I thought about it hard enough, I could still find the times that really sucked, because everybody had them. While I was there, I was a heavy machine gunner. We won the 1st Marine Division crew served weapons competition. So we got to be recognized as the best machine gun crew in the 1st Marine Division. Basically, there's only 3 divisions in the Marine Corps, 1 in reserve. So I think that was probably the highlight of being in the Marines for me, is becoming and being acknowledged as the best in my field and my craft. After that, after leaving California again, came home. That's actually where I met Greg. As I went in, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought about a career in law enforcement, and then I thought against it, because I was like, you know what? I put myself in a position to be shot at quite a few times. Never happened, thankfully. But I didn't think that I needed to do that again. So went into more of a retail, job. So that's where I met Greg. The biggest takeaway I had from Greg with selling cars is actually something I've always thought about, even now in the mortgage industry for 21 years, is credit and structure. And, we'd have maybe a credit challenge customer at the dealership, and, they'd pull credit and go, oh God, yeah, terrible, But then what I learned from Greg is he was a very good credit analyst, and he would analyze the whole situation and go, wait, this guy's actually, paid his house okay. His last car loan was okay. He would look at credit history and really analyze it and find a way, for this person that maybe had a bad time in their life, they're looking to get a car, just transportation, and he helped them out. And I always looked at that like, okay, there's just more to it than a credit score, which I thought was really encouraging. So I still consider those some of the practices I use today, because although we want to work with everybody who's got amazing credit, not everybody does, but they still deserve the chance. So that's my takeaway from working with Greg all those years ago. Since then, I've been in the mortgage industry now 21 years in January. Been quite a ride. Honestly, it hasn't been one career in 21 years. It's probably been 6. Because you've got booms, you've got busts, you've got, a great housing depression that happened way back then. You had a chance for people to buy up when, foreclosures were hitting the market. Then you had, higher rates, you had low rates, you had COVID, you had post-COVID, and now we feel like we're kind of in a normal market. So I've definitely learned to be flexible. I'm married, my wife, Jen, she's a wonderful woman. My son Parker is 18. He's a college freshman. He's working so hard. I'm proud of him. And my daughter Victoria is 9 years old, about to be 10. And she's a hurricane. We call her Hurricane Victoria for a good reason. So I see some of the pictures there. It's one of the fun times we've had. That's the biggest thing. My big interests are, my family, helping people, and my hobbies. So a couple years ago, if this is time to brag about myself, something I'm really proud of is we started a nonprofit up here in Kitsap County called Kitsap for Veterans. And we started out doing a veterans breakfast. And that's really catapulted into a large event. 3 years ago, we had 222 people through the door. We do it at McLeod's Grow House in East Bremerton. The owner there, Andy, is very pro-veteran, very welcoming. Went from having 6 or 7 businesses to kick in and do it. Now we have 15 doing it. But started the nonprofit so we could really grow it. So the first year was 222. The second year was 281 people. and last year was 400 on the nose. And I think what we're going to do is, now that we've got the playbook, we're going to make the event a lot bigger. And I think this year for Veterans Day, we could serve 600 veterans and their family members, which I'll be obviously so proud to be a part of. And the local businesses and people who volunteer and do that, and even my wife and kids are there working their butts off to get it done, has just been so enjoyable. I've been now with Cross Country Mortgage just over 7 years and 5 months or so. I'm not leaving. We're able to do amazing things. I literally can do everything with real estate financing, and that helps a lot. Obviously a huge focus of mine is veteran lending, doing VA loans. We're very good at it. It doesn't intimidate us, but we also like to work with the self-employed investors, and we're never too busy to, sit down and consult a first-time home buyer that might have a million different questions because they've never done it. I feel that I should always have that attitude, because when I was first starting out to buy a home, I kind of got broomed off by somebody, and that didn't feel too good. But the lender took care of me. She sat down, she explained things to the best of her ability, really had all the time in the world for me. And I used her, consequently, I used her, I think 3 or 4 times before she retired. So it meant a lot to me. But to stay in touch with Greg over the years, we've got a lot in common. He's an entrepreneur. He may be retired, but he's not done. Most people, they retire, they'll play in golf, and here Greg is trying to help everybody, which is really encouraging. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I'll tell you that.
Tell you what, I'm going to get the Kleenex ready for another show. No, seriously. That is great stuff. I love listening to stuff that I didn't know, and the evolution, especially your wonderful kids at veterans events. Well, make a note of this, Val. We're gonna promote that. We're gonna make that. When does that come up, Tim?
We'll do it. Our next event, we'll do it for sure, is on Veterans Day. We'll have another.
Imagine that. So we'll make a note of that. That's a great intro. Really getting to know you. You're a busy business guy, all that stuff. I'm gonna definitely ask you some military centric questions here. First, a side note, congratulations, dude, on where you've come. Okay, I knew you at 22 years old. You are 49, right? 49, March 12th.
In March, yeah, I'll be 49.
Oh my God. And your first supervisor, Eric Butler, our mutual friend, who's an old man in his 50s now. He was another mentee of mine, also a Seattle Seahawks fan, but he has absolutely hit the pinnacle himself too. And I'm just so proud of you guys. I just really am. The best media in the world is from the heart. And so my first, actually, just kind of an out of the gate question. Sure. How does your life now tie to your military? Yeah, you had 4 years, you're U.S. Marine Corps. Yeah. Back then and now, do things still tie in? And go ahead, you take 5 minutes, you take whatever you need, Tim. Just talk about it. The amazing Val had your collage up there of some of your military ventures. So I'll have her pop that up too sometime during your chat. But go ahead, Mill. How's UMC, United States Marine Corps, tied to now what you do in your life and everything in between? How's that for an open-ended question?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, nice and broad. Well, the things that I learned in the Marine Corps were be on time and work hard, period. So I think that gets you an automatic edge in anywhere. If you're showing up prepared, on time, and you're ready to work super hard, you've probably beat 75% of the people just at step one. In the different industries and things like that, I constantly see people that probably let themselves down because they don't take the time to prepare. They're not ready to work hard to see the job done. They kind of quit them themselves, and that's something I learned, as a big differentiator for sure. How does it go in the mortgage business and the civilian sector? You have to learn how to treat people differently. When I was in the Marine Corps, it was the way only, and that's what you're going to do until the mission's done. Marine Corps, doctrine is mission accomplishment, troop welfare, in that order. The civilian side's different. You have to realize that people can quit. Like they can give their 2 weeks, they could resign immediately. So, working with people, stuff like that, and relationships, really matters, and I think I've worked super hard on that fact. And I can always tell some of the Marines that have, transitioned into civilian life that don't really get that part. They continue to kind of bark, and that bites them. There's a time and a place. You realize the dog doesn't have to bark to get attention. Tact and persuasion. Sometimes to get what you need done out of people goes so much further. So, with my kids, I've got pretty gentle kids, and I'm really glad for it. My son is, he's in college. He's really enjoying his classes. He's developed such wonderful study skills. And I was like, this is really good for you. And my daughter, I tease her that, yeah, she could join the Marine Corps. And then she teases me how her uncle was in the Air Force. I don't really want to hear that, but okay. Any way she does, it's fine with me. So no, those are things that really, can translate from the Marine Corps into everything we do. One thing I'll tell you that's what's weird is after being on the Marine Corps, if you see me in a hat, I will tell you it's one time a year, or if I wear a wristwatch, it's because it's like very, very formal. I got used to the sand being underneath the watch band, and that irritated me. And wearing a hat or a cover, something like that, because I had to do it no matter what, I've never gotten used to again. So just some kind of funny quirks, but the Marine Corps, it never leaves you. You don't join the Marine Corps, you become a Marine. You're not part of it. You were never a Marine. You are always a Marine. And so things like that have really helped me over the years, with, some grit and determination and extreme follow through.
Oh, I love that. I want to jump in here, take the microphone for a minute, because that culture of becoming a Marine, it never leaves you. And can you talk about that? Because I want to say good morning and thank you to all of our heroes that are watching this morning on the Veteran Channel. But yes, you are the first to run. You see things differently. So talk about that and how that carries through even today.
Well, we had some amazing training. I mean, there's some of the coolest things I ever did. I was in the infantry, in the Marine Corps. We were geared up several times. I was in from 1995 to 1999. I did not go to combat. And when I was fresh out of the Marine Corps for probably a couple of years, I was a little jealous of it. In fact, that we didn't go to, do our part. But then I kind of transitioned to it and going, no, I mean, I served, I signed up for my time, and, I think politics were a little bit different then. We weren't really going anywhere. And so I let that go, because I do have friends that have served and they served in combat, and they've got their own issues to deal with. We're here to support them, but I don't have that. I have, the fact that I didn't get to do something. But I also have friends that, have had some issues afterwards they're dealing with, some mental, some physical, some both. And, I don't have that issue. So I'm proud to serve. I'd do it again. But we signed up to go do it. We, the closest we ever got was like bags packed aboard ship, ready. And, no, it never came. So that's been okay. But camaraderie, support, and always making sure that you saw to get the job done. There's an esprit de corps that you'll always carry with you, I believe. So it was fantastic. It's a benchmark in my life. My dad was a career Marine, 31 years as a sergeant major, even as a drill instructor. And I tell you, people go, oh man, did he spank your butt or something like that? No, never did. My dad would just, he would make you feel that you had messed up, and that was even worse than I think anything physical. So I always took that away from him. He never had to result to anything like that with me, even though he had obviously having gone to Vietnam, tours on the drill field, kind of a difficult upbringing when he was young. I always admired that he kept himself, to such a high standard. So try to do the same thing.
As a taking you back to, down memory lane, right on that note, Tim Samuels. The first time I met you was 1999. Your sales manager at the time, Eric Butler, said, came into my finance office. He said, I need you to meet the new kid. And we do that 100 times, right? As men.
Yeah.
We went out and I met you. I remember it to this moment. I was at the Buick store.
Mm-hmm.
And I introduced myself and I said, first of all, wow, this kid's really wet behind the ears, man. This is a youngster. Right? You know, me and Eric were old car dogs. But from the minute I met you, I said, wow, this kid is totally respectful. You literally were a yes, sir, no, sir person.
Mm-hmm.
You're groomed and dressed well. You're definitely ready for work. But most importantly, I said, I took from you, this guy wants to learn everything. And it was a different cat for the car business. But I took Eric aside. I said, this kid's a winner. I see the military in him. And what makes me proud to this moment is seeing it carry through to today, like on screen. So if there's any comment you want to make on that, otherwise, Val, if you have any questions too, we're just off to the races here with a 1 hour long form radio, commercial free, no distractions other than the host. You take it away there, Tim, for a couple of minutes. That was memory lane for me. If first impressions are lasting ones, they were for you, sir.
Yeah, I remember, you know, those first couple of days meeting Guy Scrivener and Brian Nelson, and then, you know, working with Eric. You know, and Eric, you know, he was in the trenches with us. You know, he'd come out, you know, boom, he's trying to sell a car, and you know, the guy was he was a grinder, you know, is a grinder, and he, you know, he's in a position now. He's very successful and moved up to I think he's the man, you know, like oversees all operations at an auto group. So
yeah, he's very general manager.
General manager, yeah.
Yeah.
When you want to talk to the boss, like it comes down to him. So he's done very well.
I do have a question. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Please.
So we're talking about domestic and at home and the importance of serving in our community. And I love how Greg's saying you were yes, sir, no, sir. And our generation, Gen X, Gen Zs, what do you see today as a way to really serve at home, whether it be ICE, the military, but that patriotism and how does it come out for you?
Well, I think, you know, my real focus is helping veterans. You know, I mean, I've had some contact with some of the local deputies in the county, and a lot of them are veterans too. And they've gone on, you know, maybe they were in the Navy and got out up here and stayed on, and they're doing a really good job. You know, I appreciate those guys. You know, when I've needed to call on them, they answer. You know, and you know, people have, you know, maybe some disdain sometimes for law enforcement, but I looked into that field. It seemed very thankless. So I'm glad of what they do. No one's perfect. I'm not. They're not. No one's going to claim to be. But I do appreciate the fact that, you know, I can, you know, if you ever needed to, you can call and they'll answer. That's huge. And I think, you know, my role is really to support veterans. You know, we started the nonprofit. You know, the Veterans Breakfast is just massive, and it's getting notorious in all the right ways because, you know, last year we had a county commissioner. His name's Orrin Root, retired Marine. We actually did recruiting duty for a half minute when we were, you know, young kids. He stayed in. He's been a MARSOC capable. He's been he's a Raider. You know, he's the man. Now he's a commissioner in the county. He came and spoke. We had the mayor of Bremerton come out, Greg Wheeler. He's a Navy veteran. He spoke, and we also through a lot of secrets and pulling some strings, we got Lieutenant General J.P. McGee to make an appearance and speak, and that was high level. Personally, I've never spoken to a what they call a flag grade officer. You know, if in the Marines it's generals, in the Air Force too, Navy it's the admirals and whatnot. wow, amazing guy, amazing career. He at one time commanded the 82nd Airborne. I mean, and that's a famous, obviously, unit. Everybody can think they know that one. But it was really good to see these people coming together to serve veterans and thank them for their service. And it wasn't more of just saying the words, "Hey, thanks for your service," because that gets a little numb to some veterans. But it was putting their money and their time where their mouth was. Let's serve you. Let's turn the tables and come on back. So I do want to do more with that nonprofit, and I think we're capable of it. We'll plan some more events and some more outreach, to help veterans. And some of the chats, you get on with veterans, you see some people that maybe I realize that aren't in the same position I'm in, that don't have it as good. So what I've been able to see is jump in some of these chats and even field a couple phone calls from veterans that are having a tough time, and it's important to only listen. When somebody's having a rough time, hey, the world's coming down on me, is just to hear people and go, what you're feeling isn't incorrect. It's not wrong. And you're not a weaker person by speaking up and saying, hey, I need help, or I've got a problem with something. It's smart. I'm not a very, overly religious person or something, but I always remember the words that, they said, the Lord helps those who helps themselves. And I think when people reach out for help, they're trying to get better. It's our responsibilities as, community leaders. And in my case, going veteran to veteran to field some phone calls even and listen to people. I had a great conversation with a guy who's having a rough time. I won't name his name. And we went back and forth. We texted even, and I'm just glad that, he got the anxiety maybe he was going through at that certain time off his shoulders. Maybe he's able to sleep better and maybe hear that, hey, man, you matter. You're doing the right things. If you're feeling some anxiety because when you were, a hard charger in the Army, and doing your thing, you knew everything. You knew every single thing. And now you don't. And that's tough. I experienced a little bit of that, in leaving the Marine Corps, not nearly to the amount as some of these guys, that maybe stayed in a long time or saw combat. You have to go from, I think I know everything in my field. I feel like I'm an expert. I know every answer to any question, to I know nothing. And you got to rely on people. It's like coming in, when I first met you, Greg, coming in the car business and going, I don't know. This guy's asking what the interest rate is. What is it? Or what is this? Or, he wants to know why we're only paying this much for his car. But the biggest thing I credit to learning from you, Greg, was, credit analysis and structure, and looking past, maybe just a low FICO score on somebody and really helping someone, because we had a couple of cases where it was even a Navy officer, where you take the application and think, done, easy.
Garbage.
A car. And when he tried to get up and leave, he goes, okay, well, I'll be right back. And he was really nervous. We're like, oh, no, hey, have a seat. We'll get this knocked out, sir. No problem. And then pull credit, and it's atrocious. And it was like, what is going on? So when we got that, we looked past, what was on the surface and found out that he was a caregiver for his brother's children. His brother passed away. He had to take it on. And he had a lot more expenses than he had a lot of income, for a while. And so he had some blemishes on his credit. But it was like, whoa, wait, that's why you have it. Oh, we'll make this work. And you help put that deal together. I'll always remember that. And, he got the car he needed. He realized he had late payments and those things affected, sure. But it was so satisfying to be able to help him and, and probably avoid the embarrassment of really what other people might think about him, because we could relate. But credit, analysis and structure just being so important in finance there, and in mortgage lending now. You have to be able to look past the surface of something incorrect. But yeah, that was a lot to do with, taking what you learned in the Marine Corps and transitioning it and translating it into what I do now. You got to communicate well. You've got to be decisive. You got to be able to make decisions and explain things very clearly. We have a saying in the mortgage business that, kind is clear. Clear is kind, excuse me. All that to set up and mess it up. But yeah, clear is kind. So if you're
Yeah.
relaying your instructions super clear. That is a way to be kind to people, because then they know exactly what to expect from you and what to execute on. So that's been huge for me with taking what I learned in the Marine Corps.
You're taking me a little bit down memory lane here as far as being a finance guy.
Yeah.
And over the years, guess what? Track record, 25,000 deals. I
This is
processed.
crazy.
Isn't that ridiculous? It's called your body of work. But you took me down memory lane a little bit in that. The one thing I learned, I'd walk into my house at night with Deborah and I'd say, I'm so blessed to be a finance guy. Don't know why.
Yeah.
Because you learned about your entire community and you learned about everybody personally if they ever bought a car. And I said, forget doctor's appointments. Go visit a finance guy at a car dealership sometime. He knows more about you than you ever know, and private stuff. And the thing that I learned well years before I met you, Tim, was almost people with the grandest structure, really the officers, the executives and stuff, you'd find out, wow, they blew up like about 3 years ago or whatever. What the heck had happened there?
Yeah.
And the big words at the time were divorce.
Yeah.
I've seen many completely ruined overnight, and medical, divorce and medical.
Yeah.
And so the minute you get over, quote, those stigmas in the world, first, you don't idolize anyone in the world because everyone's got their issues. Everybody.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I remember, and the one thing that I see that you took from it. And it's, if there's anything to learn about life, is that don't judge a book by its cover. Don't idolize anyone because they all have their challenges and stuff. Anything you want to comment to, because you've seen it all. I do want to get into the nuts and bolts about how you work your VA loans and stuff, because I really like to get some of our boys out here calling you. Okay. And funny, I say we have you on there. I'm so excited to hear you're at the military epicenter, which people don't realize is the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard.
Yeah, we're right in between Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. You know, they call it Naval Base Kitsap now because it incorporates, submarine base Bangor. There's
most of the guys we deal with, Val and I are connected with, are in Washington, D.C. Oh, and DC, you talk commander, we're talking way up there. I mean, White House access guys.
Yeah.
So, but I want you to talk a little bit. It's Bremerton, Washington.
Yeah.
Captain James McCormick had barely heard of it, I think, whatever it was. This is a military epicenter. Crazy. Navy guys, take a few minutes and talk about Bremerton and the Navy, the military centric, and really how, once again, it's affected your business life.
I mean, it affects my business life because the military is the economic backbone of this area too. We're isolated, pretty well from other shifts in the market because, well, let's face it, until there's world peace, there's an industry here that's never going away. Naval submarine base Bangor, huge. I mean, talk about the other places around here. You've got Keyport, where they test torpedoes, a torpedo facility. You've got, Indian Island, it's a munitions depot. You've got Fort Lewis down south, Joint Base, Lewis McChord. You've got, Army, and you've got Air Force. There's reserve units scattered around. There's even some Marines up at Bangor doing security forces, small cadre, probably a battalion size. So it really is. This is a military town, and people, one thing why I wanted to do and give back through the Veterans Breakfast, which I think is like the least I can do, but because I was over with my kids a couple of years ago, it was like Labor Day weekend. We went over to Lake Coeur d'Alene, and we're just enjoying it. It was a great time. We drove around. We were in the lake. I mean, it was just wonderful. Just us three at the time, and we're in this bakery to get some breakfast. And here's, we're in like Lake Coeur d'Alene. We're so far away from really any military. We're an hour and a half probably from all the buildup in Spokane and the Air Force. And they're celebrating veterans right there. They're like, hey, we're having a huge veterans breakfast. And I was like, how are they doing a better job appreciating, the people that keep us safe, rather than here we are at the epicenter. We have to be doing that too. And so it's been really encouraging to get that out there really thank people face to face, because there's some folks that come up and they said, hey, we never got this appreciation when we came back from Vietnam. We see a lot of Gulf War veterans. We see a lot of, like a lot of newer generation come up that served and stuff like that, and they're proud of their service, which they should be. So, yeah, I mean, what does the Navy primarily play in this community? It's a huge role. They're the biggest employer. There's so many active duty and then support and things like that. There's, when a ship comes in, you see it. When the Nimitz just rolled in for the last time. Funny story, actually, when I had already joined up and signed up for the Marine Corps, the recruiters, they scheduled a tour of the Nimitz, and at that time there was Marines on ships. They were called Marine detachments or Mardettes, and that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I've been around the ocean, I've been on the water, I've been on boats and all that. Like, I want to be on a Mardette. And lucky me, the Marine Corps dissolved that, so there's no more Marines on ships. But I remember walking by and looking at that boat in 1994, thinking it was old, and now it's finally getting put out to pasture year 50. So when the ships come in, everybody realizes it. You see it coming in, and when some of the newer ships that are being built come in, you've got to realize what that does for the local economy. If they spent $13 billion on a new aircraft carrier, they've got to spend, I think it's like $3 billion modernizing the facilities to even support it. That is a huge trickle-down economy that we have to respect and take care of. We definitely support the military in the area. You have to. They're your friends. They're going to be your colleagues. They're the people that are doing now what I once did. So, yeah, I'm like, hey, guys, good to see you. Glad you're back. And as a mortgage lender, let me do the minimum to help you out. And probably use some of your benefits to buy a home to support yourself and your family. I think that's huge. There's nothing better than if you have to get deployed for months at a time to know that, hey, my family was in a good spot. They are safe. They have great housing. I don't have to worry about that one little thing. You've got to worry about missing birthdays and anniversaries and special moments with your kids at schools and all those little things, while you're gone. But to make sure that they're safe, and every night when they go to bed, they're happy, they're warm and all that. That's huge. And that's one thing I can help people just kind of check off maybe their worry list, is help them with housing too.
If you're into the home front, Val Olson will have about a 3-hour show with you sometime. She's all about the home front, protecting the home front, that life starts at the home front. And after your little monologue here, I have one question for you, and it's a little nuts and bolts. You're a VA mortgage guy, and I know you handle it all that stuff. But we have an audience, especially East Coast centric audience, Washington D.C., all down West Virginia. Captain James McCormick, our Purple Heart, former past president of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. Current executive director of the Vietnam Veterans of America, you 100,000 guys. Yeah, he has guys around the country, and what they do is sometimes they need help and they pick up the phone. We got a guy in Virginia, say we got a guy in DC, we got a guy down in Georgia who gives you a call, says, hey, Tim, you get those calls. Tell me about those. Seriously, just down to earth. You get calls from military guys, all different ranks. What do you do as a VA mortgage broker to help them?
Well, we have the same process. We've built out our process to help people at the maximum level. We guide them through. We have to gather their information. And that's work history, living history, compare income versus credit, their debts, and things like that, and put it together. You need to counsel some people. That has to be said. Not everybody qualifies. The VA has an amazing program. It actually results in the fewest amount of foreclosures ever, but the highest lending limits, which I think is pretty amazing. So they got that formula worked out really well. Not everybody qualifies. And so when you get somebody that doesn't, you gotta go into like, hey, this is what we need to, fix or correct or something like that. But turn down some people that can't get into, using their VA benefit are very low. The VA is very generous with what they accept. So we get calls all the time. Hey, my buddy did a loan with you and he said you're really good, took care of him. I just want the same thing. Cool. We go off referral a lot. Our Google reviews are We're really growing that. We're very proud of it, and the fact that we got all those 5-star reviews means that we did 5-star work. And people thought that, hey, we should award you with at least, a shout out or some way that you can leverage that to get more business. And we're grateful for everybody there. Some of them are just absolutely awesome stories, what we helped turn around, overcome. I've had a few that have been turned, veterans that got turned down other places because literally the other loan originators, they did not understand what you can really do with a VA loan and what VA will lend on. They just don't know. They're maybe not as experienced or whatnot, or maybe they don't specialize in VA lending. It's really not their thing. And their interest lies somewhere else in the mortgage world, which is fine. It leaves more for us to do. So we get calls all over. I mean, we've lent in North Pole, Alaska to, down in the Florida Keys. I think I definitely want to go to the Florida Keys more than North Pole, Alaska, but it was pretty cool too. From Arizona to Michigan to Tennessee, you name it, Ohio. So it's nice to be able to help people. We get a lot going. Like currently we're going to do a VA construction loan in North Carolina for a friend of mine who's doing some amazing work there with the Army. But yeah, I'm super excited when we get that call, because I remember when I was reaching out to somebody and the lender took great care of me, it kind of set the stage, like, hey, they did such a good job taking care of me. I have to pay it forward, and then we try and build on that, not only just to replicate the service that we got, but go above and beyond. And it's, you need to meet in person. Let's do it. Let's schedule an appointment. Hey, you need to come in. You need to talk on the phone. You've got a million questions. We will answer a million questions. The nice thing about doing a good amount of business that we do is we're super transparent. Like we have a lot of business going in. We do business the right way, so we can answer any questions. I've got nothing to hide. And I compel people that are mentally thinking they don't qualify or they're not going to take the next step and own a home, or, hey man, this happened to me and I heard, VA doesn't, work with this or do that. We can dispel a lot of rumors, very, very quickly. And even some tough situations we can still overcome, or put people on the path to get where they want to be, eventually come up with a plan. So it is very rare that we can't help somebody who's willing to help themselves.
When I first came to America in 1983, the greatest privilege of being in America was having a deed to a property. Mm-hmm. And it means not the same thing anywhere else in the world.
It doesn't. Yeah.
And I want to ask you a specific question. All great loan officers have their memories. You have snapshots of memory, highlight reels of people you've helped.
Yeah.
Over the years, Tim, to this day, you'll understand this. There are customers I put together that I'm still in touch with 40 years later.
Yeah.
Tell me a story, specific story about a military kid, preferably out of state or whatever, but someone that you remember, a highlight reel story, could be recently or whatever, that you will remember forever and are proud of why you have the gift of doing what you do, which is connecting basically people with money. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's see. One of the tough cases is probably helping a veteran that became self-employed, and he didn't actually fit into where he was, where he could use his VA benefit. The VA requires what we call, full documentation, traditional documentation. That's going to be, proof of income through pay stubs. Self-employed will be tax returns, etc. And he for a reason, he basically wrote off way too much on his taxes. And I don't know why. That was an effort not to pay, income taxes, which, you got the right to. But when the VA looks at that with that, spyglass, they go, okay, well, it doesn't really fit what we're doing. So we actually transitioned him to something other than a VA loan, to a bank statement loan purchase, because he could show like, hey, I've got all these deposits coming in. I really do. So we did some extrapolation, over 24 months worth of his business bank statements and showed the deposits. And then we were able to work with his accountant and show like, hey, what's his expenses day to day? And we got that, and we were able to put it together to show, hey, he does have quite a bit of income if we look at it this other way. And that worked out really well. He was so happy because he was getting turned down by another lender. He's like, man, Christmas is coming. We were supposed to be in the house by the 15th of December. You know, this means so much. And I was like, ooh, yeah, it does. It does. Because I've been there when the moving truck is involved. It matters so much more. You know, other times like right now we're helping a couple. They're engaged, not married. And so when they bought this house originally about a year and a half ago, the other mortgage lender didn't step up and say, hey, you know, the VA requires, you know, they lend to married couples basically. Now, if you're not married, what they'll do is they'll lend 100% to the veteran and they'll do 75% to the non-veteran, okay? Because they want that down payment guarantee. Now, VA doesn't care where the down payment or equity comes from. You know, it can be a gift, it can be a grant, it can be whatever. The veteran can be the one making the down payment. So they ended up going through and they made a 20% down payment on a property. And they came to me to go, hey, we got referred you to refinance. You know, I'm going through it and I did some fact finding. And I was like, why didn't you just use your VA benefit the first time? You put down enough money, you did all that. And they go, we were never told we could do that. No one's ever said that. And this last lender never even asked us a question if I, you know, about my VA benefit, even though he's in the reserves currently, and some of his income came from VA disability, you know, so it was so odd. So that's really refreshing now to be able to help situations like that too, where people just don't know the extent of what their benefit can get them, you know, how they can leverage it. And there's been the ones too where it's been nice to be able to, you know, we can close a VA loan extremely fast too. You know, we've closed a few in 9 days. Now, every single thing went to plan, but we coordinated in advance, you know, with their agent. We had all the documentation we needed, and we did not miss a beat. And so we convinced people and sellers to take our VA loan over somebody paying cash. We beat out cash offers with a VA loan, and a lot of people think agents have the misguiding of like, hey, it's very difficult, it's very expensive, and it's very slow. And we proved all three wrong. That was awesome.
I love the culture of picking up the phone because you genuinely care and everyone matters. And so for our friends that are watching at home and, you know, there's concern or their problem seems too big, what advice do you have for them just to where to start, how to do this?
That's my advice for them is always like, you know, let's say you've got concern if you can use your benefit, if you qualify, things like that. Well, let's say your field is you're a diesel mechanic. You probably know everything about repairing diesel engines. I know nothing about diesel engines besides what type of fuel to put it in. Now, talk about mortgages. I tend to know everything about it. So come to the professional and let me help you. You know, let's find out, because you have to start somewhere. If you're just sitting on it and mentally bombarding yourself of why you're denied and why it won't work, then you're right, it won't work. But if you ask for help and, you know, you're prepared to explain the whole situation, what's going on, because it's a lot of fact finding. Really, people a lot of times they find out like, oh, well, so I'm not approved for 500, but I'm approved for 475. Okay, well, yeah, I can make that work. Done. You know, that's not a hard thing to do. And we get that a lot. We get that so often too, where people just have to pick up the phone and go, I'm a veteran. I've got my DD 214. We can easily pull up their certificate of eligibility that the VA issues and show that they are honestly, you know, approved for anything they qualify for. You know, the VA eliminated, I think it was in 2020, they eliminated any loan limits. So now if you qualify, the VA will do your loan. Is that $10 million? Is that 20? It is. You know, you have to qualify. So imagine the income that person has to make, but at the same time, your benefit has no limits now. You know, I think the biggest I've personally heard of is like a $7 million VA loan. Didn't do it. You know, biggest I've done is probably 1.2 to 1.3 million, you know, somebody using their VA. And then you can use your VA more than once, and you can have two VA loans at the same time. You know, those things exist. And that's where we kind of differentiate ourselves, as we know what we can do with it. You know, we're synced. I mean, I hate to call myself an expert, but if I look at the amount of hours I've done and put in the field, I could. I just think it's a little cocky, you know, but we strive to help people out, because if I didn't get the help when I was first starting out, I never would have bought a home, you know, and that lady that helped me, she was great. She did a good job. She explained everything. She retired probably 10, 15 years ago. But I always remember that she took the time to sit down, explain things 20 different times to me, so I got it through my head. And I was able to first start buying my first homes.
As I sit here listening to this now, 5 minutes before the top of the hour, this 1 hour show, I'm just stunned. I'm just so happy. I'm just because it's really the first time I've watched you, Tim, on air, talking about your business. It's been great. It has been great, and kudos, if anything, kudos to you, as I say, for where you've come and now how you present yourself. We don't do these guest things and stuff for fun. It's fun, but I want veterans and enlisted guys around the country to give you a call because it's
we'd love to help them. I mean, and if we can't help them, we're definitely going to tell them what they need to do. I think that's the biggest thing, that people sit on misconceptions, and it can.
That's right. And it sounds easy, but it's the toughest thing in the world to do. People think, here we go with the generations, right? If you Google something, you'll figure it out. And after 2 hours of stuff, you don't know any answers at all. It's more complicated than ever. Old school, remember this, or cell phones that pick up the cell and call you or text you. And you learn more in 5 minutes with a connected person than you do in 3 days of scrolling the internet. So if there's a message here, that's it for all the listeners and everyone out there. And that's Tim's website right up. There's a beautiful website, really crisp and clear and stuff. I'm going to take it to Val for maybe one final question. And we're actually going to be wrapping the show here. Imagine that. No matter what, this is called the beginning. Especially listening to you today, we're going to have a bunch of peeps that want to talk to you or learn more, see you down the road. I'll be talking to Captain McCormick a little bit because he's going to really be impressed with this presentation here. So I'm going to leave Val kind of the final question there. Not going to sign off yet, but go ahead and take Tim out with a Val Olson question here. And as we start to wind down the show, Val.
Well, I just want to say thank you. First off, thank you for your service. Thank you to all of our heroes who serve and serving right here at home in their community. Tim, you are saving families. You're keeping families together with the work that you're doing. And it's so deeply touching to me because I know that this video is going to reach somebody that just doesn't know where to start, and they're giving up. And this is what we want to do, is we want to save lives. We're losing 26 vets every day on home turf due to suicide. Yeah. And so we are committed that we stand with the one, we stand with everyone. And so I just want to thank you and just give you a minute just to share what's on your heart, why you do what you do. Really send a message to somebody who needs to hear, like, you are the guy that's going to stand in the gap.
Oh, for sure. Well, I enjoy what I'm doing. I can't tell you, if once I retire from here, what I might do. Honestly, maybe like a park ranger. Kind of sounds fun. I could be outside all day long and it'd be nice and quiet. But until then, I'll be in the trenches trying to help as many people as possible. I enjoy what I do. I'm lucky enough to really work some clean hours and spend time with my family. I know some people work 1 million hours and they work every weekend and stuff like that. And that's too bad. I think if they can get their business under control, I think they'd really have a great personal life too. So once I got to that point and made that realization, it really improved my relationship with my family, my wife. It's been amazing. Can't say enough about her. But yeah, I mean, we're here to help. I don't want somebody to sit on misconceptions and think, oh, I don't qualify for this reason or that reason. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But it's like if you were feeling sick, you'd go see a doctor. If you have questions about a mortgage, you should just come see me.
Tim Samuels, welcome, and thank you.
Thank you, Greg, Val. Appreciate you guys.
I'm going to do a quick extra myself, just a quick little wrap up. I'll be turning it back to Val for her classic summaries and outros. is this is really just the beginning of really, I know you being part of the Vietnam Veterans family, Vietnam Veterans of America, all these guys back in DC, they're going to love you. I just thank you so much for being on the show. So much to talk about, but that's going to be for another show. I just thank you. And I always end every show with my sign off. And it goes to you, it goes to Val, and it goes to everybody listening. And that's wake up in kindergarten every day. There's so much to learn and so little time. Because before you know it, you're in first grade. Val Olson, back to you and take the show out. Thank you, Tim. God bless you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for joining today, everyone. It's been just an incredible day. It's been an honor getting to know today's guest and new family member of the Veteran Channel, Tim Samuels. As you have heard, Tim is a VA loan guru, and he serves all 50 states. His company is Cross Country Mortgage, and he can be reached at the following phone number, 360-205-4630. That's 360-205-4630. His email address is tim.samuels@ccm.com. Give Tim a call, text, or email anytime if you need information or assistance with a VA mortgage loan. And to all of our viewers watching at home, thank you so much. Veterans, we love you, and we are actively recruiting. So we need you, and your mission starts now.
Welcome to Continue Mission Radio with Captain James McCormick. By veterans, for veterans. Guest hosts tonight are author Greg Meekin and Miss Val, our military radio gal. Continue Mission starts now.